morning, everyone. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming out to this webinar. I'm Andrew Klotz, the co-founder and CEO of Circuit Virtual Tours. And this session is called the Top 12 Tactics to Get Next Level Results from Your Virtual Tour. What we're going to do is, as you can see on the screen here, we're going to follow the student decision journey towards post-secondary school and share insights and tactics that will be relevant to admissions, marketing, faculty, and student success within each of these phases. I'm excited to be joined today by our customer success lead, Daniel Deshane, and this is a presentation that we put together for SEM Forum a few weeks ago, actually a month ago now, back in October, which was held in Toronto. And we also were joined at that time by Rupali Kumar from Brock University. So you'll hear some Brock references and data points shared in this presentation, which I think adds some real good, some good points there to support these concepts. So, all right, so that is our intros. And I guess the folks on the call, you know well what we do, so I'll skip over that and talk a little bit about some stats that support the usage of virtual tours. And really this is coming from Academica Group's UCAS report. So this is a really impactful stat to know that 1 in 3 applicants use virtual tours during their research process. And because of that, it's the #1 online source in virtual activity that applicants consult with. And that was from a pool of over 40,000 surveyed applicants in 2021, which is really exciting just to stop for a moment and kind of think about this is a tool that 1 in 3 or more of your applicants are going to run into at some point during their process. So there's a real opportunity to make a mark and deliver an impression on them. And the graph on the right side shows you the top 5, the usage of the top 5 online sources in virtual activities. So you can see virtual campus tours is at the top, online and electronic viewbooks is next, virtual general information webinars, faculty program specific webinars, and the virtual open house. So cool thing there is the purple bars actually show the schools that use Circuit. And you can see the difference in the virtual tour being used by about 4 in 10 individuals, applicants, versus 3 in 10 for non-Circuit schools. So when you pick the right tool, it also, and build it into your marketing mix and recruitment strategies, it also definitely has a lift on applicants seeing it and being able to remember and recall the info that you're sharing with them. So we've got a lot of great usage data. In September, we kind of looked at all of the school customers that we work with, and the traffic was almost, well, 237,000 visitors from 187 countries used Circuit to virtually visit college and university campuses. And so that's a huge magnitude, but also we can get a lot of insights from that data, and it can tell us some really interesting things. And just really quickly, I've got a question for you. This next part is a little bit about why this work matters, and I've got a story for you. Does anyone know what building this is? Just drop it into the chat if you have a guess around the building. There's some clues in here too. Any guesses? Some might think Rome, London. No guessers. Okay, well, I'll just cut straight to the chase here. This is St. Paul's Cathedral in London, and it was built by Sir Christopher Wren after the Great Fire of London in 1666. While it was being built, Sir Christopher Wren went to the building site and came across 3 bricklayers. The first was crouched down and he was working on a block. And again, Sir Christopher Wren said to him, "What are you doing?" And the bricklayer answered, "I'm making a living to feed my family." He turned to the second bricklayer, who was sort of half standing and also in the middle of some work. And he said, "What are you doing?" And the bricklayer said, "I'm building a wall." And the third was working furiously throughout all this. And he was working hard and fast on his task. And Sir Christopher Wren stopped him and said, "What is it that you're doing?" And the bricklayer said, with a gleam in his eye, "I'm building a great cathedral for the Almighty." And I love that story because it really tells us that what drives us to do our best work is a sense of purpose. And purpose is the spark that motivates us to work late into the night. And Gen Z as a group are extremely purpose driven. And this really brings us to tactic number one, which is that virtual tours should be as much about sharing purpose as they are about sharing places. So to truly elevate the impact, showing students the purpose they will find inside your campus can be incredibly powerful, and also help them to see the bigger picture and get inspired through the stories of others. So a couple examples of this. First, we have from Sheridan College, trade student Candice, whose professor inspired her with an opportunity to become a world-class welder, despite the fact that she had never sort of considered this career path before. We also have U-Ottawa student, biology student Peter, who's working to halt species extinction caused by climate change. And this is featured inside their virtual tour with a scene of their greenhouse that you can explore, and then a video of Peter talking about his studies. And lastly, we have Michener Institute, postgraduate kind of medical training, healthcare training school. And Stephanie from that school wants to be part of the healthcare system that assisted her family. So you can hear about Stephanie's story. You can hear from the professors that teach the respiratory therapy program that she's in, and you can see the labs that Stephanie is training in currently. So really, really powerful examples of kind of purpose behind the learning and behind the spaces. And that's our first tactic. Now let's officially start this journey at the discover and research phase, and hand it off to Dan.
Thanks, Andrew. So the first phase we'd like to discuss today is the discover and research phase. And as many of you know, this is really the start of the journey for a majority of your students. So here, prospective students are gathering information from key stakeholders in their lives, like friends, colleagues, teachers, family, social media, and much more. And they're really starting their career exploration journey. And this phase is often the longest and can start pretty early on. I'd say for most, this starts as early as grade 10, where students are exploring careers and post-secondary options through their careers class to help them reach their goals. So here are a few tactics that work well for prospects who are early in their decision-making process. And the first is, before we jump in, a question for all of you. If you had 5 minutes to tell someone about your school, what would you share? And maybe throw in the chat 1 or 2 things that you would share about what makes your school unique or what makes your school the best that there is. So just give it a moment. Love to hear some examples.
I just wanted to share, for me, like at Wilfrid Laurier many years ago, it was a co-op program and a fine arts program that were appealing to me when I was going through.
See from Richard. Thanks, Richard. So faculty, trades, and teachers with experience. That's awesome. Hands-on learning, state-of-the-art facilities. And we definitely hear that a lot from schools as well. Awesome. Well, oh, and here we go. Institution that focuses on research and innovation. Definitely, yeah. Thanks all for sharing there. And what we always suggest is leaning into those examples. And we have leader in polytech education, As a student, you'll be prepared for the job market. Awesome. So those are all the things that we really talk about especially in the first tactic. But we'll jump into the second tactic here. And really these examples lead us to building a highlights tour. And the highlights tour is a key starting point. And I would say it's a must for those that are just starting to use their virtual tour, or are looking to expand in some way and add that appealing tour available for students. The highlights tour is essentially a collection of the most interesting, eye-catching locations on campus, and gives you an opportunity to present an authentic glimpse of the student experience at your school. So leaning into some of those state-of-the-art facilities, leaning into the student experience there. And so we encourage you to think about what sets your school apart from the rest, and we'll get prospective students excited to learn more. Some things that we find pretty common to include in a highlights tour include some specialty classrooms or labs. And you can see here there's a culinary classroom here, some study space as well, and a pharmacy labs, all very unique spaces. Common spaces, fitness center, residence, some student services, and you can never forget about the coffee shops where a student's going to go to get that cup of coffee in the morning or the midday pick-me-up. So always good to include some of those as well. But a bonus tip here for this tactic, you can then include this virtual tour in other resources like your email signatures, email campaigns, view books, and more. And with the return of QR codes, it's really easy to incorporate in your in-person activities, which we'll share some tactics on in a moment. But this is a great way to get prospective students excited and then dive into more of the tours that you offer within your experience. I will pass it to Andrew for tactic 3.
So yeah, one final thought on this one actually is if you're a multi-location campus, you can actually build kind of an overview tour that's going to give people a sense of the different campuses that you have. So you can mix in spaces from different campuses. And then after they finish that kind of that highlight tour, they can go into an individual campus where they identify that they might be studying a specific program in. That can work well too. All right, so we've got an impactful highlights tour, and we can take it one step further by adding audio guides to drive recall. And we've got some really strong data points on this one, but I want to do a really quick poll from the audience and hear from folks on their listening habits. Can you drop a message in the chat and tell us how often you're listening to online audio, like audiobooks, podcasts, audio chats, Twitter Spaces, those sorts of things, Discord? If you'd like, feel free to even share a favorite podcast. So let us know if any of those online audio tools or resources, if you're using any of those. Podcasts every day, Dan says. Me too. Maybe not every single day, but every other day. I love putting a podcast on during my walk. There is a podcast that I listen to called Thought Feeder that's higher education focused, and it's done by the folks at Bravery Media. Definitely check that one out. It's a great one. Anyone else using online audio tools at all? Listening to any good podcast? Krishan, Toronto Raptors basketball podcast nearly every day for at least an hour. Super fan. Love that. Great. So yeah, so audio is a huge medium, and it really can be used inside virtual tours. I'm not sure if anyone's using Gladys's audiobook. That's great to hear. I love audiobooks. Can't even read a regular paper book anymore. It's all listening. Just on the topic of Gen Z and audio usage, Spotify's study, I believe it was last year, found that Gen Z streamed more music. They streamed music more than any other media, believe it or not, including videos, games, and TV. So audio is that number one medium as surveyed by Spotify. And when you think about online audio, you should see a way to make a direct connection with your audience. When I look at this, it's because websites are created by brands and organizations, while audio is delivered through the voice of a real human. And when you add audio and video guides into your tour, it instantly makes the experience more sensory and dramatically improves accessibility. It frees up visitors from having to read text, which most people will scan through quickly and move on and maybe not retain everything. But when audio is used, we can assume it also improves recall. And some stats that support these findings is we looked at from July 1st to September 30th, 6 schools that were using audio guides in their tours. And visitors who started with audio spent 49% more time in the tour than those who started with audio off. They viewed more content inside the tour, 16% more pages viewed on average, and they were also more likely to click on a call to action button. So that higher engagement translated into a higher number of next steps as a percentage. And while you might think that most visitors would maybe opt for a quicker visit, due to lower attention spans and kind of just speed. In a recent case study, Seneca saw 2 out of 3 visitors opting to proceed with audio on. And this highlights not only the popularity of audio tours, but also the impact of them.
Well, building an engaging highlights tour coupled with an audio guide is crucial for discovery and research, and also to pique the interest of prospective students. And while you're directing students to your virtual tour is an important tactic to showcase what makes your school unique, you can use your virtual tour to engage students further by promoting go-to resources and touch points that help them with their research, like viewbooks, in-person tours and events, webinars, and more. And I'll share a few examples here. But first, calls to action in Circuit are a great way to connect to other resources and touch points that you have. And we found that on average, 10% of visitors on Circuit virtual tours take action with CTAs, whether that's filling out a form or connecting to your website directly. So I'll share a couple examples here. The first one we have is promoting your virtual virtual or in-person open houses. And Polytechnic Montreal has used time notices to promote their upcoming open house. So after a certain number of scenes, this notice appears and invites the visitor to sign up to register for their open house. The next one is Conestoga College offering visitors to sign up for email newsletters and stay connected to learn more. And using a gallery scene allows them to explain the purpose and benefit to the student of signing up to get these helpful resources. And the final one here that we'll show you is Algonquin College using a gallery scene to promote in-person tours. So partway through their tour, they're using this scene to encourage visitors to sign up to book a tour of their Ottawa campus. And so these timely notices and galleries and calls to action are the perfect way to move prospects through the funnel with the ultimate goal of having them enroll. So just as you would use your viewbook and email communications to promote your virtual tour, your tour helps you to promote other activities and encourage students to take action. And with that, we'll move into the next stage of the journey, which is a shortlist and apply stage. So at this stage of the journey, prospects are gathering more specific information about your school. They're attending presentations, the open houses and campus tours that you've promoted as they continue to narrow their list of what schools to apply to. And to respond to this and meet them where they're at, you can use your tour in person and offer self-guided in-person tours to meet students where they are. And so we'll jump in to talk about the tactic 5, which is using your tour at in-person events. So we really want to meet students where they're at, and your virtual tour can be an excellent resource used in person, bringing your campus right to your prospects. Now, this is one tactic that I get pretty excited about in terms of leveraging your tour in person. So we're going to share 4 examples. The first is installing touchscreens at fairs. So if you're at a large university or college fair, you can install larger touchscreens and have students interact with your tour right there on the spot. Now, Wi-Fi might be a little spotty, or you might not be able to get those touch screens. So the other option is to display QR codes at your fare booths on site. So what we found is that when one student comes over to check it out, and they scan the QR code, and they're exploring the tour on their phone, all of their friends sort of pile in behind, and they get really excited to see that as well. So it's a great option for when Wi-Fi is limited or can be costly. And it puts the tour right on the student's device and allows them to have some take-home learning, and they keep that browser open. And then the next one, let's keep with the QR code for a moment. You can use these on screen, on screen in your presentations, or using screen captures of your virtual tour in use. There are a lot of visual learners out there. I would say I'd be one of them. And being able to see photos and videos helps to really consolidate my learning and take it one step further. So incorporating specific scenes from your virtual tour can help bring the wow factor to your presentations that you're delivering in schools as well. And the last one, an in-person example on campus, is bringing an iPad on tour. And for those of you that may not be Apple fans, then bring any kind of tablet on tour with you. So it allows your guests to see the places on campus that may not be accessible. So you may have 5 residences and you only show one on the tour. You can have the iPad available to check out the other spaces. Or maybe there's labs and lecture halls that you're not able to get into because there's classes going on, or they're out of the way from your tour route. Having that iPad to showcase is a great way. Now, there are a few other things that you can do in terms of in-person experiences, and I'm going to pass it to Andrew to talk about a great example from Brock University for their self-guided in-person tours.
So this one comes from Brock, and specifically the champion of this initiative was Rupali, who initially delivered this insight back at SEM Forum a month ago. And during the pandemic, social distancing limited the number of guests that they could have on their tours, which was a problem. And they needed a way to offer an alternative tour to guests. So they spent some of their downtime in the summer this year, bringing the idea to life with colleagues across campus. Their virtual tour fit in nicely as a text solution instead of needing to build and launch a separate website to accommodate a self-guided tour. So what Rupali and her team did was print and install QR codes around campus. These are vinyl stickers at select points around campus that link to a designated self-guided tour scenes inside the virtual tour. And it allowed visitors to walk around campus and also to learn more about what they have to offer, get more insight into some of the buildings, some of the athletic spaces, obviously the residents. And they noticed that during the Canada Summer Games, which shared some facilities with on Brock's campus, visitors and athletes were using the QR codes to learn more and situate themselves on campus using the interactive map that's built into the virtual tour. So that was really cool, and an awesome example of kind of bringing this to an on-site or in-person context. It requires some initial setup, but will always be available and can be updated in just a few clicks through Circuit once the setup is done. And obviously you can really expand this out and go big with it across your campus. So that was a fun example that we saw and is working well for Brock. Okay. We're going to keep moving here, and we are going to look at the choose and enroll phase. And this part of the recruitment cycle is about getting your applicants to accept and for students to pick you as their first choice. And it's really important. Many of you do this with tailored outreach, peer-to-peer conversations, and on and off campus events. So tactic 7 is the importance of residence. Residence sells your campus. I've got a quick question for the audience. If anyone wants to share on the chat, please do. How many of you have stayed in Airbnb? Had a number of Airbnb experiences. Richard says yes. Gladys, have stayed. And was it a positive experience? for you? Have you had some good experiences, maybe a few sketchy ones? So lots of people are using Airbnb here. You can probably relate to the fact that some people have a positive experiences and one very bad. Richard was saying mainly good, mostly good, good experiences. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely require those like full-on kind of photo galleries before I book my Airbnb. Having those professional photos really make me want to kind of stay there and get to see the place more than obviously if photos don't look as welcoming. So thanks everyone for sharing those insights. I'm sure there's some funny stories we can all contribute around Airbnb experiences, which I definitely have. But you might not be surprised when I tell you that 57% of completed tours from January to May of this year, in the case of Brock, came from their residence tours. And they contributed to 60% of the total page views during that period. Students want to learn more about residences, and virtual tours are a perfect way to do that. Residents can really influence students to choose your campus. Detailed residence tours are highly sought after and used by students because they're trying to determine if they can imagine themselves living on your campus. So teaming up with your housing counterparts and residence services groups to put together a residence tour and showing off different room types, amenities, and services is a must, and definitely can generate a lot of traffic for you and engagement with your tour. Lastly, first impressions are everything, and this is certainly true when it comes to residents. At the end of the day, this will be students' home for 8 months, and it's important that students feel confident in their housing choices. All that to say, residence is one aspect of a student's new home away from home. Your campus's location also plays a huge role in the choose phase. So I'm going to pass it off to Dan to talk about selling and featuring your location.
Thanks, Andrew. So as you enter the conversion phase, your applicants are comparing offers and considering more than just the programs available to them. And I would say that a number of you on this call, or all of you, would say that your city and community offers a really unique living and learning experience for students. And I remember when I was applying to university, how I didn't know much of anything about the city and the surrounding area. And really the only way for me to know was to go to the campus and see the few sites around. So schools now are utilizing their virtual tour to highlight more than just their campus. And they're taking viewers across the city and the region to see the areas that they'll explore and frequent while living in the area. So we're showing the example here from Carleton University. Their Life in Ottawa tour is an exceptional highlights tour that they share with prospective students. So the tour here shows some really key places around Ottawa, like the Rideau Canal, the Byward Market, Lansdowne Park, locals farmers markets, and much more. And what's really neat for them is the ability to embed this on microsites like their Life in Ottawa site and international pages. And it's a great way to take one specific tour and share it directly with students that are curious about what the city of Ottawa has to offer for those that are unfamiliar. So if you are looking to share more than just what students can do on campus, and what life will be like outside of the classroom, like living in residence, and your local attractions, a highlights tour, local highlights tour is a must here as well. And as you can tell from the last two tactics, the theme of choose is really getting applicants to imagine themselves at your school. And with that in mind, we're going to share tactic 9, creating day in the lifestyle tours. And this, again, is from Rupali at Brock University. So she wanted to build upon that trend and create specific tours using her ambassadors to help. So the Brock's Day in the Life of a Blank Student series features current students and the spaces that they use on campus. So their student ambassadors have fully customized a curated virtual tour with the spaces that they frequent most on campus. based on their respective academic programs and extracurriculars. So the tour also features their photo as the tour guide and a description of their on-campus involvement, both in the tour introduction and on the splash screen, where it's their voice welcoming students to the tour. So they have a few of these up, and on the screen you can see there's one for a concurrent education student and a nursing student, and they're looking to build this out across many programs and areas of interest. And from these tours, they're also linking ways that applicants can chat with these students specifically, and to increase their engagement and carry on the conversation beyond the virtual tour. Brock's recruitment team routinely says that their students are the best ambassadors for the university, and they're constantly finding ways to include them in any conversation and touch point with prospective students. So while on the tour, a visitor can click chat with Sally and will take them directly to Sally's Unibuddy profile, where they can chat and have a conversation with a concurrent education student and a program that they're interested in. So if you're thinking about this type of tour, you can create these day in the lifestyle tours for specific faculties or schools, campuses, or even tours that highlight a day in the life of an international student or a varsity athlete as well. And I will pass it to Andrew for our final stage of the journey, which is the transition and retention stage.
So at this stage of the journey, your prospects have applied, been accepted, and chose you. They're getting prepared to attend and spend the next 1 to 6 years. But as you know, there's still work to be done to ensure that they have a seamless transition to post-secondary or into your school. To respond to this, here are a few ways your tour can re-engage incoming students and support international newcomers and reduce dropout.
So the Tactic 10 is re-engaging incoming students before their start date. So you can assist student onboarding and transition by using your virtual tour to re-engage with them. And as I'm sure you know, students are excited when they accept their offer of admission and cannot wait to begin their post-secondary journey or their journey at your school. But what's just as important as ever is continuing to engage with them to ensure they're successful in their transition. So you can prevent the summer melt or dropout by using your virtual tour in email and social media campaigns, supporting course registration, and promoting student services. So as your incoming students are preparing to select their classes, you can use your virtual tour to remind them of what their lecture hall, classroom, and/or lab will look like in first year, and give them perspective as to how far or not far apart their classes will be. And to those of you that organize in-person or virtual orientation programs or support those initiatives at your school, your virtual tour can be used as part of a scavenger hunt to find out more information about what's available to students as they begin their studies. And our student success teams are discovering more and more innovative ways to showcase the supports available to students using this on-demand virtual tour. And speaking of success, here are a couple ways to ensure that you can welcome your international audiences and improve retention.
And I should just add too that the Find Rufus campaign was extremely successful. It was launched in August 2021, and there was a huge impact on the metrics, the tour site, visitors, engagement, page views, all of that stuff was all up considerably. So that was a really, really successful campaign for Red Deer Polytechnic. So thinking about the transition to post-secondary just being a stressful one, obviously, for most people, and then imagining layering on the stress and uncertainty of doing that in a brand new country where you've just started to kind of get familiar with the culture. And so that's the journey that international students face. And knowing that, being able to share various places to help this audience get familiar with campus as their first kind of bubble, I guess, and the surrounding area as they branch out is a huge pre and post arrival resource and a really, really helpful tool. So schools that are doing a lot of international recruiting, we've seen that almost half of their traffic to the to the VT site comes from outside the home country. So it's really a handy resource. And the academic UCAS data also suggests the influence factor of virtual tours as very, very high, almost the top in terms of influence score. So international students can continue using this as a resource in that transition phase to find different locations on campus, student services, and even services that they might be required to go to, registrars, financial aid, those sorts of administrative offices and things like that. And they can also use, as shown here in the Brock example, maps to get around the campus and just to get a better understanding of where things are. So the more resources you can provide to make international students transition as seamless as possible, the better it is. And lastly, tactic number 12 is highlighting student services to better orient new and incoming students. And your enrollment management plan extends far beyond recruitment and admissions. Student success, retention, and graduation are also important pillars of your strategy. So your virtual tour supports prospective students as well as incoming and current students at the same time. So let's think about that moment when you've just moved away from home. You're trying to situate yourself in a new environment and are told you should visit the library's time management workshop to set yourself up for success in the first few weeks of college. But it's located in a place you've never been before on maybe a large campus. So that, for me, might cause a little bit of anxiety, is just being able to get around the campus, to get there, to get to my workshop, and then finally to learn some of those good strategies. So having a chance to kind of check out and plan your routes and figure out where things are and what's available in terms of services can really make incoming students feel more at ease and, ready to attend their first workshop and connect with all of the different resources and supports that you're providing there on campus. And this example here is showing us around a little bit of Conestoga's tour. So you can see all of these different spaces, student services, social spaces, and all that great stuff. And I'll pass it back off to Dan to wrap things up.
So by now you've heard about 12 amazing ways to support students throughout their decision journey. And we hope that they've been helpful. We hope that you have at least one thing you can take away and are excited about actioning on your virtual tour. So these are all just examples of how you can utilize virtual tours to make a big impact on a large percentage of prospective and incoming students. And it's fascinating to see that the more engaged visitors are, the more likely they are to take action. And at this time, we're happy to take any questions that you might have. And we're also going to drop in the chat for you. You can book a time with us to chat more about integrating some of these ideas into your virtual tour today. So please don't hesitate to book a time with us. But yeah, we will also open the floor to any questions that you might have.
So Colin on our team, and sorry, Colin, for not making the introduction at the start, but Colin is our new growth marketing lead. He's actually got a couple questions that he might pose here today. He's just put in a couple links into the chat. If you'd like to book some time with Dan to talk about enhancements or improvements on your virtual tour that related to any of these tactics that we shared today.
So the first one up there is for Dan, and then this next one is for Andrew as well. Okay, so nice to meet everyone here. I've met some of you already. Andrew and Dan, what tactics would you say have yielded the highest engagement rates with the Gen Z audience to date?
So I guess outside of, or looking at all of these 12 tactics together, which ones are the real high impact?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I can just maybe share a couple. I'd say definitely audio tends to be one of the top ones where you'll see just an instant impact on tour performance and engagement within the tour, and obviously an instant accessibility boost. So that's a great one. The highlights tour, a lot of schools tend to have this covered initially. They kind of start out of the gate with the highlights tour. So that one is a very important one, just to have that really solid, tight highlights tour in place. And I think if I was maybe to choose a third of like my personal favorite, I'd have to say, I think it would be residence, because of the amount of traffic that residence tours get and just bringing students inside a consistent experience for them. But I'm curious to hear if Dan maybe has some thoughts on one or two others that he leans on.
Yeah, I would add sort of tactic one with the student videos. Say student testimonials have been pretty impactful. So the use of video within the guide cards, we do see a lift there, but students want to be able to picture themselves at a school and to sort of see themselves through a current student or an alumni is something that we find they kind of resonate with and spend some extra time on the page and checking that out.
Okay, so I guess that sort of leads into another one of my questions, is sort of the idea surrounding a blended approach. So you kind of touched on that, but have you seen some schools use links to social media channels that might help support the tours and kind of give them a boost?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's, in terms of like getting traffic into your tours, social is absolutely a viable way to do that. And it's quite easy just to be able to share a quick link with a space and bring people from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc., inside a specific place in the tour, and that could line up really well with the content calendar of what you're currently talking about and promoting in your social channels. So it's probably an underutilized tactic, just given the amount of communication priorities that there are inside social media for many of you institutions. But it can be a quick and easy one to kind of schedule some posts and set them up to tie in with maybe an open house or something that's happening within a specific faculty or department or the time of the year. So this is a great chance to bring people in from those social channels and get them inside your experience and have them engaging there.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna kind of throw this one out there. This is a big topic for everyone. And I think this could be an interesting point where it could promote a bit of discussion if everyone feels like jumping in. I guess one of my big questions right now, as being a new member to the team, what does everyone see as a future trend that we should prepare for today when dealing with the Gen Z student and how that's going to move forward constantly?
We attended CBIE last week. A big question indeed, Richard, it is. We attended CBIE last week, and there was a really good talk there from Shannon at Ontario Tech University. And she was talking about, it was in the lens specifically of international students, but I think it sort of rings true for domestic students as well. And just the importance of developing an emotional connection with students and providing a really friction-free way for them to apply and enroll and engage with you. So being able to connect with them directly through conversations and maybe virtual events, answering their questions quickly, also using storytelling. These are really important than ever before. And she was talking about some of the hands-on environments that the Gen Z audience is really interested in seeing. So that kind of plays nicely into some of the virtual tour content. Response from Richard is grabbing attention when so many other things are happening and targeted at this group. That's definitely a great point, is like, how do you sort of connect and capture someone's interest at the right time and help them engage with you further, and just provide a nice structured plan that they can interact with you or attend another event, or basically to help them move through the funnel.
Yeah, I mean, what I've gleaned thus far as well, and from attending the same event as Andrew, is that this generation wants to digest information in their own way. So you kind of have to hit them at every possible point and make it feel like they're creating their own personalized journey. So that's a unique way that I think things are moving forward. I mean, we've all heard about personalization many times, but I think it's more this ability to create your own way, because the Gen Z really has an entrepreneurial mindset, and so that sort of fits with the way their mentality is moving forward. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there. That makes sense to everyone.
Thanks, Colin. Any thoughts from our wonderful audience here? Any final thoughts? Any final questions? Did this spark any ideas, perhaps, for you? Or maybe we can talk about that offline as well. Well, thank you to everyone who joined today. Really appreciate your interest and your attention and your great questions and conversations. So thank you so much for joining today. And we look forward to working with you on implementing some of these new tactics into your virtual experience. So have a fantastic rest of the week, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Good stuff, guys.
Good job.
I was trying to just see what would happen if I threw out a little bit more of a loose. I was attempting to get it a bit round table-y, and I sort of turned my camera off to mirror what everyone else was doing, so they're paying attention just to you two. It kind of made sense that way. It's a tough one to get a round table around, I think.